Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. They are your local concrete experts. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Also, the carrikerchronicles.com. It's where all your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true, ladies and gentlemen. It's just science. These shows are always easier and more fun for me to do when Nebraska's winning, but if you're enjoying the content that we're putting out on this channel, and if you're excited about some of the interviews that we're doing this week, Coach Osborne's joining me right now. Dawson Merritt, all right, where he's going to be joining me on Monday for a special edition of the Carriker Chronicles, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 on YouTube, 7 p.m. Central Time on social media. And then Charlie McBride will be joining me either Tuesday or Wednesday evening, depending on how he's feeling later this week. All right, so make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell. But if you're excited about all that, then smash that like button. But in the meantime, I want to bring on my special guest, a 5-time national champion, 2 times as an offensive coordinator, 3 times as a head coach, Mr. Coach Tom Osborne. How you doing, my friend?
Doing fine, Adam.
Nebraska started off 5-1, had a good start to the season. And I do want to mention Coach Osborne's book, all right, Legacy of Leadership, all right, Leading with the End in Mind, is still out. We talked about it when he joined me in August. I'm going to once again put a link to the book below in the comments on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. They're actually running a 20% off sale on the book, but we'll talk more about that throughout the interview as well. But Nebraska started off 5-1, obviously. They're now 5-5, having lost their last 4 games in a row, unfortunately. What's your take on the Huskers' last 4 games and just trying to get over the hump of becoming bowl eligible?
Well, tonight's game was a little odd. I think there were a couple of really bizarre plays where the ball got banged around.
Mm-hmm.
And we did get one turnover. Ball got knocked out, but then there were a couple where there was some not very fortunate catches by the opponents. And I guess now that I'm not coaching, I can say this, but it seemed like there were a couple of pretty critical possible pass interferences that were not called. And so it was a game that was winnable, and yet we didn't win it. And so it's been unfortunate because I think that we have a good team. The only game we weren't competitive was Indiana, and I don't quite know what happened there. And part of it's Indiana is a very good team, and so I'm kind of hurting for the coaches and the players because I think there is an anticipation that at least the progress of going to a bowl game is important. So they have 2 shots left, and of course right now Wisconsin is playing very well against Oregon. They don't look like a pushover, and Iowa is Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
They are not spectacular, but they play good defense, and they don't beat themselves.
So Nebraska's unfortunately, in their last 9 attempts over the past few years to try to become bowl eligible, they're 0-9 in those 9 games, and they're 4-22 in one-score games during the similar time span. When you're trying to get over the hump of something like that, what's your advice to the coaches, the players? Just what would your advice be to try to get over the hump of something like that?
Well, all you can do, Adam, really is go out there and practice well on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. I was never a guy that felt that you won a game with some kind of a pregame speech or halftime speech. You can get people fired up, get them out on the field, but then the practice habits and the things that you do all during the week take over. And so the only thing I can say is and I think they are practicing hard. I don't think that they're letting up. I think that they're also, when you've had a lot of bad fortune, sometimes you can get the thought when the other team scores or you fumble, well, here we go again. And so it's easy sometimes not to believe that things are going to fall into place for you. And the only thing that you can do to overcome that mindset is to win. So I'm hoping that somewhere along the road we can put together some more wins at the end of the season. Started out pretty well, as you mentioned, and I think we were 5-1 at one point, but of course the caliber of competition has gotten better in the second half of the season here.
It's interesting because obviously the competition is better once you get into conference play, Big Ten play. Do you think there's any chance that somehow the team regressed in the past month from where they were at earlier on in the season? Certain things look different, that's for sure, but what are your thoughts on if they have regressed and how a coach might turn that around if that is the case?
Well, we're not scoring a lot of points, obviously, and tonight of the points we did score, the 20, I think we're due one pick six and then a turnover that put us in field goal position. So the other 20 points, I guess the offense was directly responsible for 10 of those. And it seems like we sometimes move the ball, but then we get down around the 15-yard line, the 10-yard line, and then things start to fall apart. And so I wish I could put my finger on it and say, well, you just got to do this and everything will be fine. But I think that obviously just getting the ball in the end zone, even though our number one place kicker has been out for a long, long time, seemed like the second place kicker has come on and done a little better here the last 2 or 3 weeks, and thank heaven for that.
Yeah, John Holt definitely seems to have found his rhythm. As I mentioned in the post-game gut reaction, he's 5 of 5 on field goals versus Ohio State, USC, and the like. Now, Matt RHULE called it unique, all right, bringing in Dana Holgorsen at this point to be the offensive coordinator, to call plays. It's definitely something that is unique. Have you ever seen anything kind of like that before, and what are your thoughts on Dana Holgorsen being the OC and calling the plays?
Well, I guess, Adam, I don't recall that having happened this late in the year. Barring somebody having an illness, offensive coordinator, something really unusual happens to their physical health. So it is a little bit unusual that you see it this time of year. It doesn't mean that it can't be done. And I think that I don't know Dana Holgorsen personally, but I have watched his teams. And of course, he has been mostly known for the run and shoot, a lot of passing. But I think tonight he did try to give the running game a decent chance. I thought Johnson really got a lot of yards pretty much on his own at times. And so he did generate some running game, but still a pretty heavy reliance on throwing the ball.
Yeah, so Nebraska had averaged, prior to the USC game, in their previous 4 games, 2.8 yards per carry. That did jump up versus the Trojans to 4.8 yards per carry. All right, I do want to real quickly give a shout out to our sponsors, DPS Concrete Construction. Ladies and gentlemen, they are your local concrete experts. If you need retaining wall work done, concrete work done, these are the folks to do it. If this is your line of work, Jason Armstrong owns DPS Concrete Construction. He is a good dude. Outside of being a Yankees fan, he is a good dude. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a guy you want to work for. Check it out and check him out at dpsconstruction.net. Also, Bonzel Pool and Spa. They have phenomenal pools, hot tubs. They got sales on hot tubs right now, saunas. If you need them, they've got them. If you have them and you need them taken care of, check out bonzelpool.com. Look for Jeff. Tell him Adam sent you. That's bonzelpool.com. All right, you think about a young guy like Dylan RAIOLA. He's very talented. He works hard. You hear nothing but phenomenal things from coaches to his teammates to everyone around him, how hard he works. Obviously, he's very, very talented. Early on in the season, he had a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, 9 touchdown passes to 3 INTs at the time. Now it's 11 touchdown passes to 10 INTs thrown, only a couple of touchdown passes, 2 thrown in the last 6 weeks. The talent hasn't gone anywhere. I'm sure he's still working just as hard as he was. My question to you is, he seems a little bit tentative. So how do you help a young, talented quarterback like that get a little bit of his confidence back?
Well, Adam, I don't want to be in a position where I'm trying to second guess coaches, but I would say there are some read pass options where you can get the ball out quick, and we do get sometimes, not so much this game, but previous games we were throwing a lot of just pure dropbacks, no play action, and sometimes the pass rush was getting to him pretty regularly. He does have good throwing skills. There's no question about it. He has a good arm, and I think he's a pretty intelligent young guy. And so I know him personally and do have a great deal of regard for him. But it would be, I think, somewhat helpful to diversify the offense where so much of it wasn't resting on his shoulder. And some of that has to do with the running game. Some of it has to do with slants, hitches, and of course we have at times tried to throw bubble screens, and some people have been upset that we threw too many because we didn't block them well, but I have noticed in this game particularly, our perimeter blocking on the bubble screens was better. I thought that they evidently must be working on that, and you have to do that pretty much live in practice because receivers, tend to be people who are thinking about catching the ball, and a lot of them don't really realize that a big part of the game is what your receivers do, because you can block perfectly at the line of scrimmage and not get past the linebackers or the secondary if you don't get some downfield blocking. And so I'm hoping that'll pick up, and I think maybe in this game was a little bit better.
So you brought up the officiating early, and it's interesting because during the USC game, I had some people text me, and I'm like, I really don't want to talk about officiating. I don't want to anymore. I watched a Kentucky player early in the season versus Georgia get his face mask ripped completely off, his helmet ripped completely off, and the official called a face mask on him. Not the Georgia guy, on him. He got beheaded, and he got the penalty thrown on him. There's been obvious, maybe issues here and there, not here and there. There's been issues with Big Ten officials. Obviously, the Ohio State game was something else, and then Ohio State fans were mad about calls in that game. What are your thoughts on officiating? And I don't know. It's not an easy job, but I feel like it's got to be done better. I mean, you think back to the 94 Orange Bowl for the 93 national title. William Floyd fumbled. I still don't know where the block in the back is on the Corey Dixon punt return. So you've experienced it yourself as a coach. What are your thoughts on officiating, Big Ten, college football as a whole?
Well, I think every official does the very best they can, and I know they put in a lot of time. And so most of the best officials eventually get plucked off by the NFL. Clete Blakeman was a former player of mine, and Clete was in the Big 12 and in the Big 8. And all of a sudden he's up with the NFL. And the reason he's there is because he's really good. And so I think sometimes you lose the very best officials to the professional league, but a lot of it depends on the standards and the expectations of the people in each conference that grade officials and that train officials and supervise officials. And of course, those expectations have to be high. I don't think anybody at the conference level is not trying the very best they can. But it is unusual that when you get a score game, either way, you can almost always pick out one or two or three calls that would have made a big difference on either side of the ball, and this is part of it. And of course, we always told our players that we've just got to be good enough that if we do get a bad call or two, it isn't going to affect the outcome because we've played well enough that one call or two calls can't make the difference. But nevertheless, it is hard to see those things happen.
I'll still maintain the Penn State guy was about 5 yards out of bounds in 1982.
No question. It was kind of funny. Joe Paterno and I were good friends, and I'd say about 4 years later, Joe and I were at a meeting. He said, I think that receiver of ours is out of bounds. And 4 years later, he admitted it. And yeah, that was bizarre. That wasn't even one that you could possibly think that was a legitimate catch.
All right, now the Legacy of Leadership book, okay, Leading with the End in Mind, just so everyone knows, and a reminder, I'll put a link below. All right, wherever you're watching this show, social media, YouTube, there is a 20% discount for the holidays. All right, and you can use the discount code Black Friday when you check out. The discount code is Black Friday. But talk to me about this book, what people who haven't read it, it's a great book. Other people who've read it love it. But talk to me about what prompted you to write this book and what you think people need to know about the book.
Well, as you know, I'm no spring chicken. I'm 87 now. And one thing that has struck me is that it was Stephen Covey who wrote the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of those habits was to begin with the end in mind. And so none of us get out of here alive. And I think sometimes if you don't keep the idea that you are mortal and that this isn't going to go on forever, and you keep that in mind, you don't have to obsess about it. But at the end of your life, how many regrets? Everybody's going to have some regrets. But I think so often people, I heard recently somebody who worked in hospice care, and they said the one thing that struck them was how many people in hospice spend so much of their time talking about regrets, things that they wish they had done differently. And so I think what Covey was saying is that as you go through life, and particularly in the early stages and the middle stages, if you keep in mind that you're not going to last forever, and it isn't just about what immediately gratifies you, but how much have you done for other people? How much have you served other people? How much have you done things that are of some eternal significance? And so try to walk people through some different thought processes and some of the things that I guess have happened during my lifetime, and reflect on those. And I don't want it to be morbid. I just think it's something that people can maybe get something out of that would enhance the way they live their life in a way that leaves fewer regrets at the end and makes life more meaningful and more purposeful.
Yeah, and again, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very good book. and everyone else that I've talked to that's read it really likes it as well. So look for that link. Go purchase the book if you're so inclined. And then, so just full disclosure, we're actually recording this interview on Saturday night after the Nebraska USC game is over. Obviously, this interview is going to go out Sunday, but that's because you're leaving Sunday morning. You have a heart procedure. And so for those who'd like to pray for you, keep you in your thoughts. I don't know what you're comfortable sharing about it, but whatever you'd like people to know, I guess, what's going on with the heart procedure?
Well, I have a valve that has a pretty good sized leak, and there are three major valves. There's the mitral valve, the aortic valve, and the tricuspid valve. And the aortic and the mitral are fairly easy to fix. The tricuspid is more difficult, and actually in Nebraska, I don't think there's any procedures that I know other than open heart surgery to fix a tricuspid. And so that's the one that I'm going to have taken care of, and that'll be up in Minnesota. And so anyway, hopefully it'll go well. I think it will, and have a good support system. So again, that's just part of life. You know, you get to be 87, and it seems like you always got something going wrong somewhere. But overall, I've had a good life, and still feel pretty good.
Well, thoughts and prayers with you as you travel tomorrow, travel there, travel back, and with the procedure and everything else as well. And thank you for taking the time to join me tonight, Coach.
You bet, Adam. It's always good to talk to you.
All right, I got 3 questions for you fine folks at home. Well, 2 questions. But the first thing is, if you'd like to send a message to Coach Osborne, you can simply do that in the comments below wherever you're watching this video. All right, and then the other 2 things I have are questions. All right, if you believe Nebraska will beat Wisconsin or not, simply say yes or no. And then if you think Dana Holgorsen will be the full-time OC come next year, just simply say yes or no. And until next time, Husker Nation, go Big Red, and always remember...
throw the bones.